Good morning again. Guys, what Jenny said just then about the kids camp, so good. This is like a world-class experience for your children in this period of June. I mean, I even suggested that since it was an Alaska theme, that we probably needed to gather some video footage, and that I'd be willing to go and be the person that goes with the camera. So it got vetoed, unfortunately. But really, I can't think of anything that, if you say this is your church home at Anthem, I can't think of anything more that you should invest in yourselves with your family and your kids, or within any kids who are within orbit of your life. Like, I think we should all take this as our responsibility to tell those families and kids around us, you know, who are in the apartment next to us, or in the, you know, somewhere close to us, or the condo, wherever you live, that take some of these invites, church. Take some of these invites and be proud of what your church is doing for that week for kids in our community, because it's going to be a great week. There couldn't be a better way to bring children in our community in on the ways of God, and they would have a great experience. And so I just want to put a little bit of pressure on you this morning. Jenny would never do that, but I want a good cop, bad cop, you know, put that pressure on a little bit. Like, let's take ownership together of inviting the children in our community to Anthem Kids Camp. They will have a great experience. Okay, you in? Yeah, I love it when you all do that. It's great. Yeah, we're in. Sure. What's next? Okay, so today I just want to anchor our time here together just in couple of verses, I suppose, and from the book of Galatians. And so if you want to turn to your Bibles to Galatians chapter 6, and Galatians chapter 6, this is one of Paul's letters to the church in Galatia. There's a whole bunch of letters in the New Testament that are written by Paul the Apostle to various churches that are in their early years of getting started, much like us at Anthem. It's the kind of young, scrappy churches all across parts of the East there, the Near East, with like Greece and Turkey and Macedonia and places like this. So he's speaking to the church in Galatia here, and it says in verse 9, and we'll just start at verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. In fact, what we'll do, we'll add verse 10 to that as well. What Paul tends to do when he kind of spells out these kind of big global ideas, he has a habit of then bringing it really local and just and localizing it. And you'll see when we read verse 10 how that kind of pans out as well. So let's read verse 9 and let's read verse 10 together. But let's read them out loud. Okay, so whether you're looking at your Bible or your phone, we're going to read them, or on the screen, we're going to read them out together. Together? Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have the opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. Are you getting ready for summer yet? Anybody? Anybody feeling like summer might be around the corner? Not today, maybe. I mean, we've been getting ready for, like, at one level, we're like, from that horrible winter we had, like, you know, from the very beginning of that, when it just started piling on snowfall after snowfall, we're like, when is the summer going to come? But I feel like there's a different level of faith that it might come, right? Once you hit Easter, and man, we had some good days, didn't we? We had a few good days last week. You get that sense that it actually might come this year. And then, of course, our hopes are dashed again. And I mean, I made the mistake, and I'll confess this, of taking what are those things called that we scrape the windows with of our cars? Scrapers, probably, yeah, that makes sense. I thought it was like an American word I was forgetting for it or something. But I took them from both of our cars and I put them in the garage. So if there's another 16 inches or something, that's my fault. I'll own that one, all right? But we love to look ahead. We love to think better days are coming. Do you remember this guy, Olaf? Is this anybody's favorite character from Frozen? He's just all about summer, right? And there's the line he says, "Sometimes I like to close my eyes and imagine what it'd be like when summer does come." And we've all been there, right? We've all said that in the last few weeks. And Olaf just loved the idea of just long-term rest and relaxation. And whether he should be or not, that's for the story to tell there. You know, there's clips in the movie of him like laying on a dinghy or a boat or something and just drifting wherever the wind under the hot sun takes him. Or you ever like it when you're on the beach and you just go in the water and somehow with just like being around in the water, not paying attention to what's going on, you kind of like finally think about going back to where you were sitting and you look up and you're like, I have got no clue where any of our stuff is, you know, because you've just drifted, right? And it's okay to drift. It's kind of like you don't really care. You're like, well, nobody cares about my stuff. They don't, you know, they're just trying to find their place to go to. So one of the most enjoyable things about the summer is just those periods of just being able to shut it off and just be able to drift. I mean, and we need those moments, don't we? We need those times to rest, to recuperate. If you're like me, you've started to, you know, be on Expedia already and try to think, okay, where are the cheap flights going to? Where can I get out of here? Where can I, you know, spend a few days resting? But Paul's writing to this church in Galatia, and he's saying, I think, in the midst of our busy lives and in the midst of our Jesus-centered lives, and even in the midst of taking time off, don't grow weary of doing good. Don't become weary in doing good. And don't forget that there's some kind of prize out there as well. That there's a harvest if we do not give up, if we keep going. It's like Paul is course correcting this boat that's got off course and started to drift. And the thing with a little bit of drifting is not going to cause too much trouble, right? Like if I was going to go to my neighbor's house and if I'm just like 1 degree off, you know, going to my neighbor's house, I'll get to my neighbor's house. I mean, I might like trip up on the steps or knock a plant over by the door, but I'll be pretty close to where I was hoping to go to, wouldn't I? But if you're 1 degree off for a long time, maybe I take a plane from Boston and I fly down to Orlando. If I take a plane I think I'm heading for Orlando, but I'm 1 degree off the whole time, you're not going to land on a runway. That's for sure. You know, you're going to be off at dangerous levels and not be able to. And it's going to be a lot harder to get back. And one more movie reference, and then I'll be done with that. But do you remember watching Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? You know, you can tell I'm real highbrow with the movies, you know, but this guy, I have a problem with this guy right here. And I don't know if you read the book or if you watched the movie when you were a kid like I did, or you've played it to your kids like I have, but remember, you know the name of this character? Grandpa. Oh, we got some good, well, all the points there go to Sandy, but next round is going to be tougher, but like we'll see how you do. But Grandpa Joe, he's of the 4 grandparents. He's the one that I have the biggest. Well, I have somewhat of a problem with Grandpa Joe that I don't have the others. I don't know the state of the others. We're not really told. But Grandpa Joe's apparently he's been disabled to the point of being bedridden for 20 years, like 2 decades. He hasn't been able to get out of bed. Okay, and yet, like just you know, Charlie walks in and he's got this promise he's got this golden ticket, and you get like this whole day out at the chocolate factory, maybe a chance to win the whole thing. And yet Charlie's mom she's working 2 jobs and she's doing laundry and all the time, and she's doing dishes and she's caring for these 4 elderlies and her son. There's 6 of them. She's the only able-bodied adult in this situation. And Grandpa Joe's been amongst these 4 that have been in bed for 20 years. And yet with just a little bit of an enthusiasm here, a little bit of an encouragement of a kind of a fun day out, all of a sudden, somehow Grandpa Joe can spring into action. Like, he was like the world's biggest faker, you know? This whole time, 20 years. And like in no time at all, he's bouncing around and he's got the agility and, you know, the movement of a caffeinated kangaroo, and he's just ready to, let's go, you know? And I'm thinking, like, Grandpa Joe, at some point, could we not have met in the middle somehow? Like, I mean, a 20-year nap? And then just being able to get up and go. Could you not have helped with the dishes at some point, you know? Somewhere along the way. Did you have to just lay there in bed for that long just watching that tiny little TV that's off in the corner? And this is the guy that's drift. He's got to a place of long-term drift, decades-long drift, faking it for 20 years. Paul says, let us not become weary in doing good. And I like the way that he phrased that, because I don't stand here as a person who's like, well, I'm telling you not to become weary, like this is a pedestal, and I'm like looking down here. And I like the way Paul says it, because he says, let us not become weary in doing good. This is like an invitation to like a shared journey rather than like a command from Paul's pedestal. But he's aware that, man, if we're not careful, if we're not watching the store here, we or any group of followers of Jesus could become the kind of people that could get weary of doing good, and we could start to drift. You and I are responsible for keeping ourselves locked in to the service of King Jesus. It's not your wife's job to keep you faithful. It's not your husband's job. It's not your small groups leader's job. It's not your pastor's job. If ever there was a time in history for followers of Christ to become self-feeders, right? It's today, isn't it? I mean, you can purchase any book from here. You can read any book on a Kindle. You can have it read to you if you prefer that, like I do. And you can download or stream content from far better preachers than I'll ever be. You know, you can get encouraged. You can listen to Bible podcasts and ways to strengthen your faith and content that is going to encourage you and develop your character in the ways of God in a way that throughout the course of history we've not been able to do. There is more great content out for us to take today than there was yesterday, and there'll be more tomorrow. And it's our responsibility to be self-feeders, to be people that are responsible and able to keep our fervor serving God. Paul says in Romans 12, he says, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor serving the Lord. You see, I have to maintain my zeal for God. I have to be responsible for maintaining the discipline of following Jesus. And he carries on, be joyful in hope, be patient in affliction. Maybe that one's hard. Be faithful in prayer. And then I notice how once again he turns these kind of like global ideas, these big concepts, and he brings it local as well. And he makes it so it's very like touchable. He's giving next steps. He's like, here's your next faithful steps in this. Verse 13, it carries on. It says, share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Man, he's sneaky like that, isn't he, Paul? He takes these ideas and we're like, oh, I can get behind this idea of keeping my spiritual fervor serving the Lord. I can stay zealous for God. And then he does this again. He's like, share with the Lord's people in need. The Lord's people who are around you. What are the needs that you see around you? What are the needs that we see around us? Where can we practice hospitality? That's not just, I believe that hospitality is a gift, is a spiritual gift. But it's also like, the Bible describes faith as a spiritual gift as well. And yet there's also a level of faith that all of us are supposed to have. It's not just certain individuals. And I think hospitality is one of those things where some folks are like, you know that they're gifted to be hospitable too, but there's a calling on every single one of us right here. Practice hospitality. You're not going to get it right. You might be really bad at it at the beginning, but it says practice. right? The call for us is to practice hospitality. Don't get weary in doing good. Keep doing good. Don't become weary in doing good. And I want to just ask, okay, how do I know? How do I know whether I'm doing good or not? How do I, you might be like, can you give me the 3 keys, Pastor, to doing good? Well, probably not, but it's not a bad question to ask. How am I supposed to work this out in daily life? How am I supposed to not give up doing good? How am I supposed to respond to the call to not grow weary? What does serving Jesus rightly really look like? What does right worship look like? In the history of Israel, there was a prophet named Micah, and he spoke a lot about the judgment that was coming to the nation of Israel. And in Micah chapter 6, and you can turn there if you want, we're going to read Micah chapter 6, verses 6 to 8. He had a question about how his people were supposed to live. In a sense, he's saying, what is my serving God supposed to look like? What is my worship supposed to look like? What are the kind of the terms, and what are the steps into adequate and appropriate worship to God? And I love this, the way that it's written. You kind of have to dig behind the surface and see the style of the writing here. It's kind of quite poetic, and he's asking this question. And it's a rhetorical question. He says, with what shall I come before the Lord? Verse 6. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow down before the exalted God? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? Will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? Micah's getting a bit absurd here. He's getting a bit, he's exaggerating this. And this was kind of the way that their poetry would kind of unfold back then. He would get to this point of hyperbole and extreme exaggeration to make a point. And he says will the Lord be pleased with thousands of rams, with 10,000 rivers of oil? And then he says this even further. Shall I offer my firstborn for my transgression? Have I literally got to sacrifice my son or daughter, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul? And we read that, we're like, okay, Micah, we get it, you're having a bad day. Ease up a little, it's been tough. And he's like, I know you're trying to figure out how to best worship God. But then under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, Micah is able to answer his slightly crazy question. He says in verse 8, he has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Those 3 things: to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly. Do you think any of that changes if we're drifting out on a boat? If we're like, oh, I'm taking the summer off from work, so I guess I'm taking the summer off from Jesus. No, that's not the plan. We have to continue to live like that. That's how God asks us to live, to act justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly. And it might have been a lot easier if you could come here this morning and Colin's going to give us 6 simple answers to not growing weary in doing good. But even the scriptures don't give us those specifics. They give us this sense of okay, it's your responsibility to go and figure out how to act justly when injustice is being done around you. How to love mercy when it seems like there's nothing but cruelty taking place to the people around me. How to walk humbly with God when it seems maybe pride is on display, even in people who say they walk with God. And I wonder if there's, as we look at that verse this is on it's not anymore, we lost it, but we used to have this on a plaque in our kitchen. Just that reminder to us and that reminder to our kids and anybody who comes to our house that this is what this house is about. Our mission statement as a family: to act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. We even called our 3rd kid Micah because of this. That was a bit of a flex. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but it was on our mind. That verse was on our mind when we named our 3rd child Micah. So, acting justly and loving mercy and walking humbly and not growing weary, they're never convenient, are they? They're always but probably they're there to require us to step up, to not drift, but to make intentional choices. And maybe there's a relational situation that's drifted that it means that I should probably engage in that, step into it, bring strength to that, where if I let it go, it just be getting weak. Maybe it's standing up for somebody and being intentionally standing up for somebody who's in a real need. Paul, he will always, like I said, seems to bring these challenges, big picture challenges, and then he says, especially in the household of believers. He's saying, let's do this one right here in this community, right here among your brothers and sisters. Or he says, practice hospitality. Do those things that you can only do with people who are within your reach, people who are around us. Could it be God's asking you to take a step into maybe some kind of task or engagement or work here in the church that is going to serve people who need the help that you can bring? And I'd ask you on that, is there a sense of calling to recommit, to re-engage? Just in case you're not aware, there is always work to be done in the local church. There's always work to be done here. We even have a page on our website. It's I think it says connect up on the right there, and then you click on the thing that says serve. I was going to change it to don't get weary in doing good, but it didn't fit. But and you can look down there, you can see how can I get involved? How can I get engaged? When we're at home doing yard work, is Liz in the room? That's great. When we're at home doing yard work, Liz is really great at lopping off branches, trimming trees, this kind of stuff. And we're actually getting ready for a family wedding in our backyard this spring. So we're doing a lot of tree trimming, and she is great at pulling the branches off with our little chainsaw and just trimming. She goes around. And she's not as great at picking the branches up off the ground. In fact, I think, and I've asked them, do you think there's somewhat of a backyard elf that comes around, and the backyard elf sort of walks behind you, and she's pretty, and if she's so much as starts to point the finger at me, I'm ready to knock that thing off, But truth be told, there's a lot of times at night when she's doing dishes or cleaning up our kitchen, and I'm the one that's already upstairs, and I'm like, could she not do that a bit quieter, and in my mind, I think I've got a pretty good idea that there's a kitchen elf, that there's a kitchen elf that takes a lot of the weight that I should be carrying. I think it's easy for us all to think that there's a few church elves as well. It's easy for us to think that I don't really need to play my part because the church elf will do it, right? There's a whole crew of church elves, and if at best we need a lot more church elves, than we have. I wonder what it means for us to not grow weary in doing good. But to put our hand to the plow because we know there's a harvest. Paul promises, you're going to reap a harvest if you don't give up. I'm not a big football fan, American football fan, but there's a college football coach named Bud Wilkinson. He's been dead for some years, but he said this about football. He said, a football game is a spectator sport where 22 people down on the field are desperately in need of a rest, and thousands of people are in the stands, and they're desperately in need of exercise. And that happens a lot in sports, right? There's a lot of opinions from the stands about what the 22 people should have done. But that can be the church too. That can be us. And this applies to football, but I've seen it in the church. Now, not here, of course. I mean, other churches, never, yeah. But I've seen it that we can easily slip into spectator Christianity, But I found that that those who, for being part of Anthem, get the best experience out of local community church is, rather than living in the stands to receive, we're on the field to spend ourselves for the sake of the call. And so I love it when I see people even this morning saw somebody who had a baby a little while ago, and it's just a couple of months ago, and they're out serving with the middle schoolers, and I'm like, that's great, way to go, like. When I don't know if times have changed, but when we had our babies, the guy got a week off at best, and Liz, in some of our cases, got 6 weeks off. Now this world is great for that stuff now. It's a lot more European now, and people are getting longer periods of time off when we have babies, but like. Sometimes we use these things that are taking place in our life to completely withdraw from the local community, to completely withdraw from the family of God. And I want to bring that challenge, like, you're still part of a community. Yes, it's a different season, but you still have a part to play. And so I was really pleased to see somebody this morning who's just had a baby not long ago and is like back in the game. And I think those of us, when I think of kids camp, those of us who will get the greatest experience of kids camp is probably the adults, not just the kids. Because we'll go home and after 4 days, you're not even sure if you want to see your own children. But there's something about that experience that makes you glad that you're exhausted, makes you glad that you're super tired, because you know that you've had an impact in the lives of the next generation of followers of Jesus Christ. So many folks here are serving at Anthem in multiple areas. Some of you are on a team that serves at the back of the room here, and then also serves in the kids area, or serves in the lobby, or contributes in the week leading a group or something. But I believe there's still room. There's still room in the pool for some to get off of beach chairs and jump in the pool and be right where the experience is supposed to be. And so, and I know that maybe you did some maybe you have just had babies, or you're in that place where you're like, I'm barely keeping my head above water here. And so in this case, don't feel any judgment or browbeaten or judgment about being weary. But the answer to Micah's question of how do I do this? What am I supposed to bring? It's not a bunch of do's and don'ts. It's not that list of, well, do this, do that. It's not bring your sacrifices. It's not perform your religious exercises. It's not try to look good before God. It's not try to look good before your pastors or the people around you. It was a challenge to Micah to engage in the immediate world around him and to bring into that broken world mercy, to bring justice, to bring a humble example of somebody walking with God. Another scripture with a promise in it is Proverbs 3. And this is you've heard me speak about this verse before. I love this verse. This has been kind of locked in my mind since I was a teenager. But it's Proverbs 3, verse 3 and 4. It says, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. I love how the writer just thinks like, you're going to remember this if it's some kind of a physical analogy. He says like love and faithfulness, like get these things so close to you that they're kind of everyone can see it. They're right on your heart. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. And then there's this promise again. There's this kind of like this, like Paul said about the harvest. Right here it says, then you'll win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. Man, that's a great promise that's worth living this life for, isn't it? Worth living this life for, where you and I, sometimes we get to that place of like, I'm doing a lot of serving. I'm doing a lot of doing good here. I'm getting a little weary. And there's that reminder, like, keep going. There's going to be a harvest. There's going to be a good reputation. in the sight of God and in the sight of man. And we might not even be able to quantify it that clearly or say, well, these are the blessings that you're going to get. It's not that specific, but somehow we can leave that to the Holy Spirit and know that it pays off. It pays off. Faithfulness and love and doing what we can to not grow weary. And I will say, whether or not we grow weary or not, this isn't the talk about affecting your salvation here. This isn't like, I gotta do good, otherwise I don't know if I'll even have right standing with God or not. Well, I'm not sure that's the case because Paul was writing this letter to this church in Galatia, and the whole letter that he's writing is all about what I would call Jesus plus nothing. The reason we have a relationship with God is solely because of Christ and because of his finished work on the cross. The reason that we can know him is not because we climbed that mountain and we found our way to God, but it's because he was willing to reach down. It's all him. It's Jesus plus nothing. And yet it seems like the outworking, the outflow of that, the response that we should have, that we should have a response to the work of God in our lives, and it should be to do good. There's some sort of reward system. There's some sort of kind of airline points, some sort of harvest that's to be had. Like there's a good name out there. There's a reputation to be had. There's a harvest to come from continuing to do good. My dad has been gone for 16, 17 years. But I remember when I was 12 or 13, there was a college, a Bible college near us that he would support financially. And back then, people wrote checks. Anyone need explanation of what a check is? We can do that if you like. It's kind of like Venmo, but not. But he would write. He was an accountant, so he's pretty structured with his finances and with his time. And each month there would be a series of checks that he would write. And he had met my mom in their 20s, kind of around the edges of where this college was, and they used to do services as well, so that my mom and him used to go to these, and I think that's where they met. So he was very, like that little Bible college meant a lot to him. And right from when I was 14 or 13, around then, I can remember seeing checks written to this place and thinking, oh, okay, so we give money to them, huh? And it's just like, as you're growing up and you see what your parents are doing, I encourage that. I encourage that your kids know and see where you are generous. I think it's a great example to our children as to what we're doing with the resources that God's given us. And I remember seeing checks go to this Bible college, and I think he was giving to I'm sure he was giving to our church too. That was probably part of his regular giving there, but there would be these regular checks going to this college. He'd been impacted by them. He loved their work. They were training leaders and sending them off around the world. And there was still checks going to that Bible college when he died at 80 and I was 40 something. Like for decades, he was faithful. For decades, he didn't grow weary doing good. That's what I loved about it. And I even remember this, he was in pretty good relationship with these people, but every now and then he was also kind of grumpy about some of the things that they would do. And because they were involved in the church too, and he was on the board and was involved there, and he would have every now and then some not great things to say about his relationship with them or how they were working. But he never quit doing good. He never gave up doing good. He remained faithful. No, other than his snoopy kind of son looking at his checks, nobody saw what he was doing. Nobody saw his faithfulness. There was always one for them for decades. And I know that there are pastors and church leaders literally around the world that in part are there because my dad was willing to be generous, willing to say, I won't grow weary doing good. He had a commitment to love and faithfulness, a commitment to generosity with his time and with his resources. And Paul will always bring these kind of big ideas local and say, what about you? What about your local community? Solomon's doing the same thing when he writes Proverbs. He says, stay filled with love and faithfulness because there's a reputation coming with the people around you. It's always expressed in the local as well as the global. And so every now and then I meet somebody who's like tells me they're a Christian, and oh yeah, I love Jesus. I've got Christian T-shirts, and I've been to 2 Brandon Lake concerts this year, you know, and yet you try and find like where are you actively engaged in like expressing your faith in a local church, and then things tend to go quiet a little bit. See, they've learned what it is for the church to be global. But is there an active, sleeves rolled up engagement in the church where it's local, with people that irritate me? Sorry, I wasn't trying to look at you specifically, but it might happen. I don't know, you know. But you know, like with people that bug me, or with people that I don't like that person. Is there I want there to be a challenge today for us to think: how do I make the ministry of the global church something local, and I find my place in it? Would you, worship team, would you come and just prepare? That's why I'll always cheer on those who have a commitment to the local church, even though they know that it's not their home. Like some of you are even here for a season, and I just want to honor those who are here for a season. I mean, I think of Ian and Maria out here who are with us for a year, right? Or the Katie and Jimmy who are here for a couple of years or something, because you know your work has brought you here, and you know your work is going to take you away. But you've got this commitment to the local church, and it says, like, if I'm here today, this is my church today. You know what I'm saying? And it's disappointing when I meet people who say, well, I'm only here for 3 years, so I haven't really found a local church to be a part of. I'm like, no, that's not how it works. It works when we say, like, for the day that I'm here, whether it's a day or a decade, if God's put me somewhere, I'm gonna bloom where I'm planted. I'm gonna grow where God's put me. And then I also, of course, I want to honor those today who've been here for 6, 7, you know, like multiple years. I think of Michelle, who was in our talking to you in our kitchen before Anthem even started. You know, I think of CJ, who was with us before Anthem even started, and then moved away and came back years later. And you thought, like, this is where God's put me. So I asked today, and then one final quick photo I want to share with you in a minute, and one closing illustration, I suppose. What's your next faithful step? If there's a challenge from God's word here, what would be your next faithful step? Meaning, what do I got to do now? What do I do about what I just heard? A few years ago, my kids were out playing in the street. We lived in Michigan at the time. And my oldest, Eden, she was on her first cell phone. She was probably, 12 or something. I don't know, we were dumb giving her a phone at that age. But she was on her phone, and a friend of hers calls her and says, you got to go outside, the Google truck's coming round. And the Google truck, you know, with its camera is like going around taking Google Earth pictures of the neighborhood or whatever, the street view. And she calls Elise and Micah, her younger brother and sister. She's like, we got to go outside. The Google truck's coming. You know, it's like the new ice cream truck is now the Google truck, you know? And so the Google truck was coming. And then Elise, who's always ready to spring into action, she's the Grandpa Joe, but without the 20 years off. She's like always ready to move. She runs into the house. She's like, I need props now, you know? And she grabs my wife's big old overcoat and a unicorn on a stick, and then she goes back into the street, and then, like, this is the Google Images street view of our house for about 5 years. And she just has that approach to life, like, all right, what do I do now? You know, I gotta do something. I gotta take a step. And every now and then it comes out a little crazy. But she is always ready to act on the information she's just heard. And I thought about her when I thought about this. I wonder if, rather than be told, okay, here's your next step, get baptized next week. By the way, maybe that is your next step. Maybe you need to make that decision that you've been putting off for a while to say, I know that the scripture says after we've made that decision to follow Jesus, we should follow that up by obeying him in the waters of baptism. Maybe next week is your time. If that's you, don't delay. Sign up on the website today. There might be a link that we can put up for that. It's anthemchurch.life/baptism. And you can sign up today. But maybe outside of that, the next step isn't 100% clear. Maybe it is serve some way in this community and come and talk to me or come and talk to Liz and ask us, like, I want to serve and I haven't figured out how yet, but I know God wants me to be a part of this community in some valid expression of my faith on a week-to-week basis. Can we stand together, Anthem Church? And that we were going to keep things super simple today. We're going to sing because I wanted you to be the ones singing, because it ended up just being me on the stage to hear my voice any more this morning than you already have. And so we're going to sing a song that all of us, perhaps if you've kind of been in the orbit of the church at all, you'll have heard. And let's worship as we bring this hour here this morning to a close and bring our songs. He is worthy of the praise that we have to bring to him together.